Blog Talk Radio.
Jacksonville. The child was born who couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts for whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. The writer's project for the WPA. Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. The crackers and blacks, they talked for hours. It was a barefoot history, this land of flowers.
From WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. This is the week that was, not to be redundant here, of course, on the 29th of July, 2017. Our last program for the month of July. As we move along, this week was action-packed. Normally Friday is not known as quote-unquote a news day, but yet came word that the President, DJ Trump, had relieved his White House chief of his job. Philbus is out. John Kelly, who was at the Homeland Security, is now the quote-unquote chief of staff. Now this sort of reminds one of H.R. Haldeman. It's a situation that DJ Trump is dealing with a lot of military throwbacks here. This guy is a four-star general, but he is a Marine. He was in the military for 40 years, which basically tells one he has that mindset. How will he be able to work with a civilian corps at the White House? From our standpoint, not very good. Trump has went to a lot of military people here. He has Mad Dog Mathis here in one position, and he also has HR, is his name HR? I'll get it in a minute here. It'll blow up. But he's in another position, so you have all these military types in Trump's cabinet. Not good in a democracy. It just smells of coup. This is a character that was in charge of the Southern Command at Guantanamo Bay, was part of his, as they say, beat. And H.R. McMaster is the other guy, Lieutenant General there. Kelly moved to Chief of Staff, National Security Advisor. So you have all these birds here that are out of the past, and also this Kelly and Mad Dog Mathis are devoted to Catholics, which doesn't say very much for them. How does this work out with DJ Trump? Well, we'll see, but the problem DJ Trump has is, well, two problems actually. The Washington Post, and this is where we're getting this information, alluded to the fact that Trump is moving away from the Republican Party. And DJ Trump can ill afford to move away from the Republican Party because it is the only base that he has. The press always alludes to DJ Trump's followers. Well, DJ Trump's followers are basically a facade. Those are people, probably about 20% of them, a little less than 20% hardcore followers of DJ Trump. Now, the other will be generous with him 25% when he's up at about 45% in the polls. Those people are the Republican base, and those are the people that got his quote-unquote victory over. He represents the business interests, no doubt about that. But the business interest itself is in somewhat of a state of turmoil. You have new technologies, disruptive technologies, such as Amazon, who incidentally owns the Washington Post, and the head of Amazon has, quote-unquote, become the richest man, surpassing Bill Gates. But what that tells you basically is the so-called disruptive technologies of the last 20 years, Amazon a little bit different than that, but they have come out of in the American economy. They are not the kinds of technologies that the DJ Trumps of the world are appealing to. The new job, basically what it is a plant making panels for monitors, TVs. They do the Apple contract also for their smartphones to build something in Wisconsin. But what that means is the state of Wisconsin has to come up with $1 to $3 billion. Now that would be something that Philbus himself and Boss Walker came up with. Where does that put Boss Walker now that he's left? This person chaired the Republican National Committee, the bulwark of the Republican campaign. This is what a lot of people did not comprehend. DJ Trump basically had no formal organization at all, period. And the Republican National Committee ran his campaign. They provided the structure, not only the structure, they guided the money, and also at the same time the analytics. There was a shop in San Antonio, Texas, but that was just part of it. Basic turnout for his campaign came from the Republican National Committee. Now, where these Republicans will now fit in here is going to be a very interesting situation. The structure there, little Paulie Ryan down in the House, he's from Wisconsin. And the problem with politics, and this is something Trump has never understood, is a world of its own, and he's not part of that world. And these characters that he has now around him are not part of that world. And then comes something that President Obama spoke to, and something we don't spend a lot of time on, called policy. Part of the problem DJ Trump has had, his policies are just that. They are floating points. They're not any sort of fixed policy that was apparent in the healthcare fight. Now it's complete chaos. Trump said, well, we'll let it implode. That is the exchanges. The exchanges can implode, and we'll get to that in just a minute from Reuters. They can implode, but the problem is they will take the rest of the quote-unquote insurance market with them. And that is a problem in itself. And again, this is a problem of policy. So from this standpoint, basically the Democrats are daring Trump to let it implode. He can let it implode. There's no problem right there. But what he doesn't understand is that when you get into quote-unquote policy, and particularly when you get into the Affordable Care Act, that the number of jobs at stake, the numbers of people that are covered, many of the predictions within 4 or 5 years, 32 million would lose their health coverage. But what people are not comprehending here, it could be 10 million or 2 million. But that can spike if the exchanges in these counties could start to close down. So will the entire market, and not just in the exchange. Let me just finish this part up, and we'll get to the Reuters part. Is a much more important part. The healthcare vote lays bare the divide between McCain and McConnell. Well, that's there's always a tendency in the U.S. to personalize politics. This is more than a personalized thing. It's an ideological thing. McConnell, and this is from the Washington Post by Paul Kane. Anyway, McConnell and McCain have fundamental differences in their approach to politics, no doubt about that. The Kentucky Republican counts success almost entirely through political victories, wins and losses, best measured by elections every 2 years. The Arizona Republican, that's the old man McCain, success in worthiness of the fight, a determination that something influenced by the prediction for playing and the maverick and the attention it brings. In more than 3 decades together in the Senate, that disparity has never been displayed quite like in the past few days. Senator McCain was a conservative hero, scorned by liberals as a hypocrite, no doubt. Hallie brought that one up the other day. By early Friday morning, he was back in the liberals' good grace. Well, the subject of some grumbling from Republicans, and on the receiving end, pointed Twitter there, who earlier the week called him a brave American hero. He was a decisive vote, no doubt, if not for Senator McCain, and he'll be remembered for that after diagnosed with the aggressive brain cancer. But that is a problem within itself with McConnell. McConnell himself, where will he end up in this situation? Well, it was a humiliating loss, no doubt about that. More than 32 years in the Senate, all the more so because he had shrunk his ability into a narrow bill that was meant only to serve as a vehicle to open a new round of negotiation. And this is the problem with the House Republicans there. A single biggest divide. McConnell is 75 years old. Senator McCain is 80 years old. And that in itself is a different situation. Every decision in the 10 and a half years since he became the caucus leader has been crafted towards trying to capture then maintain a Senate majority. He did that during the Obama administration, that is McConnell. But the problem here is that the nation itself is a bit adrift, and this is something DJ Trump doesn't understand. The core people that he's dealing with are throwbacks. This entire economy he's talking about is manufacturing. Manufacturing basically went out with the New World Order. It doesn't mean there's not manufacturing out there, but manufacturing itself is very speculative, period. So the whole idea of bringing manufacturing jobs to the U.S., and this is something they don't talk about, is based upon demand. So in other words, you can only sell so many iPods, so many iPhones, etc. That's a market situation. So if you're building a plant, the plant can only produce what it can sell. So much for that. But McCain had been around for a very, very long time and was an old timer at this. And this is one of the problems that the Trump people don't understand. The Senate is a different institution, and these people are creatures of the Senate. From Lindsey Graham, a close friend of Senator McCain, called the proposal disaster, fraud, and horrible politics. To have a chance at winning, Republicans, they had to pass a bill that left intact much of Obamacare. Well, no doubt about that, but the problem, they were not leaving enough intact. Let's segue to Reuters here, and we'll see what this so-called implosion will mean there. Republican senators failed this week to repeal, this is from Reuters, President Obama's signature health plan. The program provides health benefits to 20 million Americans, with the funding and managed in 2018 response there, as he said, let it implode. This is DJ Trump. The individual markets. Now, these are people that companies that are part of the individual markets. And let me see, we're having a little bit of difficulty here. Anthem is one. Anthem's the second largest healthcare insurer, sells Blue Cross Blue Shield plans in 14 states. It's already decided to pull out most individual markets in Nevada, Ohio, Indiana, and Wisconsin in 2018. Earlier this week, the chief executive there, Joe Swedish, said he will waive the 2018 participation of his states. Now, this is the case here for single payer, and it's more the case for single payer because these markets will fall apart. But it will go to the broader situation also, and this is what they're not talking about. The insurers that are waiting for Trump or lawmakers whether they would continue to fund the $80 billion in annual government subsidies. Now, some of the Republicans talked about fixing this. Without assurances, many insurance plan to raise rates an additional 20% by August 16 deadline for premium prices. Now, that would be for 2000. Others say that many unknowns will be risky to business, and this is part of the problem here. They cite somebody named Julie Garrity. She's a small business owner in Carson, Nevada. Is currently covered by Blue Cross and Blue Shield Nevada, part of Anthem, which has already decided to leave the exchange in her county. Now, this is in these counties. Let me just get back up to the start of this, and we'll look at the counties and where they are. The headline came in here as to actually how many counties will lose their coverage in 2018. And this is the big story here about these counties and where they will end up here because of the shenanigans in Washington. There will be many, many counties that will lose their coverage. Okay, this was the headline here. Hundreds of counties at risk for no Obamacare insurer in 2018. We started with Amphenon here. Let me just finish this up. This is the implosion plan here. Amphenon, Cigna Healthcare, Cigna Corp Healthcare Services, Moline Healthcare Services are the biggest insurers selling Obama plans, and say they are weighing over the pull out of more markets for 2018. They have until the 27th of September to finalize this. So far, 40 U.S. Counties are expected to have no insurer offering individual coverage next year, but the number could rise by the hundreds, according to data from government data, the Kaiser Family Foundation analysis, insurer disclosures. More than 1,300 counties, primarily in 15 states, currently have only one insurer participating. Anthem and HSCS are the last man standing in one-third of those counties and states, putting those areas in a particular risk. We've been reporting on this from the ground level. Right now, the number of counties at immediate risk of having no insurer in 2018 is small, but it easily could grow. Many insurers have been weighing for an answer from Trump or lawmakers, as we report on the $8 billion, so we won't go over that. We talked about now Healthcare Service Corp is a Blue Cross and Blue Shield licensee in 5 states and is the only Obamacare individual insurer in more than 90 counties. In Texas, 75 in Oklahoma, and half of a dozen in Illinois. They confirmed that it has submitted products for its 5 states, but is weighing next year. We're working through the regulatory process and hope to fulfill that. This is one of the shortcomings of so-called managed care to begin with. Moline, which has 1 million members in Obamacare plans, Cigna, 250,000 participants, said they need more certainty from the government to decide on 2018 participation. State insurance regulators have worked hard in recent months to replace insurers who have left. In Nevada, for instance, Centellicorp and Aetna have entered into counties that Anthem left, according to the insurance commissioner, and said he would favor those insurers for Medicaid contracts. Now, this is part of the managed care operation, evidently is much more lucrative. There's no chance they will step in to participate, but we're unsure of, unlikely to find replacements for the new dropouts in the final weeks, particularly the Trump back to the $8 billion in subsidies there from the fellow at Society of Actuaries and Chief Financial Officer of Gissinger Health Plan in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. Some insurers say, they were likely to raise rates in hopes they work. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan filed 2 sets of rates with the Department of Insurance up to 32% higher. So in other words, what DJ Trump will do is he will end up raising rates for people in many counties, no doubt about that. Let's go to Uncle Karl Rove and his comment here. He's writing, as usual, in the Wall Street Journal on the 27th of July. How long can the Trump term go on? Even for this, as he called it, dramatic administration, the past several days have been extraordinary. A week ago, when President Trump said his Attorney General Beauregard Sessions should have never recused himself from the investigation of the Russian election meddling, called a recusal. Very unfair. These comments are followed by likely rumors that Trump's legal team would go after Special Prosecutor Mueller staff, along with more plausible suggestions that the president might fire Mr. Mueller. On Friday, he appointed the financier and potty mouth Anthony Sarmusi as his communications director, prompting Spicer to leave part of the week there, and of course now Regis Philbus has left himself. The chief strategist Steve Bannon of alt-right, he's still there. Scamuzzi also talked about him there on Monday. Then on Monday, a Senate panel interviewed his senior advisor, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, about July 2016 meeting with a Russian lawyer. The meeting was organized by DJ Trump Jr., who had received an email saying the Russian official possessed information that would incriminate the Hillary. The following day, the president renewed his attack on the Attorney General, tweeting that Sessions had taken a very weak position on Hillary Clinton's crimes, their emails, and DNC server. During a Rose Garden presentation, he lamented that he was very disappointed in Beauregard Sessions. All of this swell of events, team Trump portrayed Mr. Scamuzzi as an appointment as a major reset, saying the president and his administration best communicated that he would benefit from delivering his message directly. But this is a misdiagnosis of what ails the administration's public relations. The president's job performance has dropped from an even a 44% approval rating and a disapproval to 40% to 55, 40% approval, 55 disapproval Wednesday. So this is the average there. Now, Real Clear Politics is a little bit of a problem. In addition to Scamuzzi as an effective, personable advocate For Trump, his ultimate value must come from planning and executing a coherent communication strategy that results in a disciplined message and advance the president's agenda. This requires working with the entire White House leadership and the rest of the administration, congressional Republicans. That app went out when he dropped previous for the General Kelly is not here. One of Scaramucci's strengths is his relationship with Trump. He can assist the president mostly by using his influence to help DJ Trump resist his worst impulses. Well, that has not happened. Mr. Trump, it's interesting how he's phrasing this, should consider how ugly the next 6 months will be if he continues attacking Beauregard Sessions. If he fires the Attorney General, the president will guarantee that every other message is blurred on the bad press as he deals with fallout and searches for acceptable replacements. The Senate Democrats will spend months tormenting that person during confirmation hearings, and even Republican senators raise tough questions. If Trump makes a recess appointment, a crisis will ensure. Well, this is a warning to DJ Trump that the Senate does matter, and the problem DJ Trump has is that DJ Trump does not understand the mechanism. Now, this appointment of Kelly doesn't understand it either. So Nars Scaramucci is just is going through a divorce. He's just one of these loudmouth people that has descended on the Washington structure there. Let me just go to, let me see where we are. Oops. We'll get to the sports in a minute here. We were looking for an article here. Oh, Al Gore. We'll get Al Gore in here. Al Gore has now come out in favor of for-profit health system. Had a chance, a single payer. Al Gore, I believe we ought to have a single payer health care. That is Al Gore. What appears to be the collapse of Trump care, no doubt about that. This was on Monday, I believe, when this article came out. So it has already collapsed in the Huffington Post. Gore has in the past unenthusiastically expressed support for single payer. I think we've reached a point where the entire healthcare system is imploding, is an impending crisis, Gore said in 2002. I have reluctantly come to the conclusion that we should begin drafting a single payer national healthcare plan. Gore is one of the most more prominent Democrats to speak publicly in support of Medicare for all, along with, we'll say, our own Senator Bernie Sanders. Others who have recently endorsed single payer: Elizabeth Warren, of course, Senator Warren of the Commonwealth, and Kamala Harris. She's a senator from California to speak. As a possible candidate in 2018 for president. Progressive groups leading the resistance against Trump care have repeatedly emphasized that it's not enough to defend Obamacare. So away we go. Sandra Gaylor, dean of the Boston University School of Public Health, argues in an analysis in the Harvard Business Journal, there's no reason to think that the status quo is immutable. It is not, after all, comes about organically. It is a product of years of influence, strategically welded by power stakeholders in business, medicine, politics. Galler continues, the stakeholders were able to advance their agendas in large part because Americans had not come to view healthcare as essentially a collective right. This is changing. Now, that is part of it. This is coming, incidentally, from Common Dreams reported on Tuesday, coalition of more than a dozen progressive groups seeking to pressure Democratic lawmakers to change, along with the surge in public support backing of Medicare for All. Bernie Sanders brought the idea of Medicare for All out there, and now we are seeing it as a fact in itself. It is, in other words, a reality in healthcare. Let me just move on here to a little bit about some of the trading going on here. Let's start out in Philadelphia, and we have Howie Kendrick was traded to the Nationals, and Jeremy Hellickson to the Orioles. Now, Howie Kendrick is a accomplished baseball player. The Nationals have acquired him. Now, this big run that is starting the Phillies actually in the rebuilding year. The Phillies will send about $1.59 million to cover most of the approximate $1.78 million Kendrick is due the rest of the season. So he'll be what they term a renter player that will be there, and where he's going up. He's 34. He's hitting .340, which is good. 2 homers and 16 ribbies this season, but he has been limited to 36 games due to injury. He didn't play in the game in Atlanta, but nonetheless appeared in 24 games in left field. He's second base and first, so in other words, he's a very versatile player. And let's see, some more people on the move around here. We won't spend a lot of time. Jacob Ellsbury, non-waiver trade deadline passes on Monday. You'll hear trades plummeting. Details are still made in August when they have, like Jacob Ellsbury, through the non-waiver claim. But good, cheap players will eventually get claimed out there in August, no doubt about that. And where some of these deals will go, we don't exactly know at this time. But some of the players out here mentioned in these skirmishes. What will the Cubs do? Is going to be very interesting here. And what the Dodgers will do, Darvish is one, but is mentioned out there as possibly going to the Cubs. But we'll know next week. On the Monday Morning Quarterback, we'll have more of this as it continues on. Out of Baltimore, Joe Flacco, Colin Kaepernick welcomed in Baltimore, but not as a starter. But that doesn't really matter that much where we start to not getting him back into the National Football League. He'd like to see Colin Kaepernick there, and of course he had not spoken to him. He remains a free agent. In quarterback skills are very limited. Flacco's injury, the team signed David Olson on Friday. Olson played for Jim Harbaugh's brother. Harbaugh's brother Jim at Stanford, and where he beat out Andrew Luck. Anyway, the thing is, these people out here, Kaepernick is 2,300 rushing yards over the past 6 seasons. He's third to behind Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. So he's in a very good company there. I thought we'd throw it in, and let's do the scores now. This is from last night, Major League Baseball at its quote-unquote best, no doubt about that. And we'll get it as best in a minute here. I'll get the scoreboard up here. Anyway, let's see. Number of games there. The Dodgers and Giants, which would normally be a very good game, but the Giants are so far out. The Rays were in New York. Yankees 6-1. The Rockies and Nationals postponed. The Atlanta team was in Philly, and the Phillies won that game. Let's see, 10-3. The Angels and it were in Toronto. Angels 7-2 over the Blue Jays. The Royals were in Fenway Park. Royals 4-2 over Boston. The Astros were in the Motor City. Astros 6-5 over the Tigers. The Reds were in Florida. The Marlins 7-4. The Orioles were in Texas. Rangers 8-2. Cleveland was on the south side of Chicago. The Cubs have left and wish they would have stayed home. But anyway, nonetheless, Cleveland 9-3 over the White Sox. The Cubs were at the Brewers in Milwaukee. Brewers 2-1. Losing that was Quintana. Now that's one pitcher that the Cubs traded for and trying to solidify their pitching rotation. Suter was the winner. The D-backs and Cardinals in St. Louis. D-backs were shut out. The Cards 1-0. The Twins were in Oakland. They pulled that one out, 6-3, up and down there. The Mets in Seattle. Mets 7-5, out in Seattle. The Giants and Dodgers. This was a very close game. It was 1-1, and finally the Dodgers ended up winning this game 6-4. Mr. Wood ended up being the winner there, and Kenley Jansen the save. And finally, the Pirates and Padres in San Diego. Padres 3-2 in that contest. So that does it for sport, and we'll see where we are now. We're going to get Professor Reed in here, an article that he had. I think I'll just do a little bit of it. This is in his, what is it, Counterpoint, I believe is... Counterpunch. On the 28th of July, Ishmael Reed, Trump's Irish Americans without hearts. Just as some have speculated, the experience of slavery lingers in the psychic of descendants of slaves. The Irish famine, the result of the British genocidal policy against the Irish, have affected generations of Irish that followed. Jews are suffering from post-traumatic stress as a result of the Holocaust. Dissolving into whiteness has proven both with an escape mechanism basically here. It's when James Baldwin wrote Dan Watts, the liberator, that Jews had become white Christians, that he was abandoned by his sponsors. His novel, Tell Me How Long the Train Has Gone. Several of these ties permanently. Many American Jews weren't the only group to abandon the heritage for a bland whiteness. In connection with my new novel, Conjuring the Hindi, I studied the British occupation of India, which led to the murder and starvation of millions of people. I discovered that Churchill helped to feminize these millions by exporting their rice to Britain and Australia. This was Churchill, who had contempt for both Indians and the Irish. Yes, white nationalist Steve Bannon and other Irish Americans sat in the Oval Office where Churchill's bust is displayed. This is how it looks if a former President Barack Obama had a bust of Jefferson on display in the Oval Office. President Trump's mother, a domestic, and Mary McLean. Trump was Scottish, who, like the Irish, were exploited by the other whites. She arrived in the U.S. in 1929 in the Depression, yet Trump wants to expel Latinos from America's West, where they had dwelled for hundreds of years. He's a Hispanic here. We'll use Latinos more proximate here. And, of course, going Churchillian, our Anglo represents an improvement in the status for Trump, Bannon, Mojave, and Paul Ryan, and other members of the president's Irish Mafia. As with African Americans who were profiled by Professor Houston Blake Jr. in The Betrayal, how black intellectuals have abandoned the ideas of the civil rights movement. And let me just see how long this is. I don't have time to read it all. Despite two scandals exploited by WikiLeaks and its principal sponsor questioning his morals, Henry Louis Gates remains the designated leader of black intellectuals. One of the reasons for this rise has been his insistence that the plight of the black-owned class is attributed to their personal behavior. He goes after 35-year-old grandmothers living in the projects and commented that the election of a black president would not end substance abuse amongst what they call black Americans, which most of the heroin and meth seems to be located in white states like Maine. This is one reason for the rise in mortality rates in white Americans. 2 years ago, two married Princeton professors, Ann Case and Augustus Denton, released an alarming study showing that white middle-class Americans were suddenly dying much more frequently than in the past. The results, surprisingly, given the mortality rates for the U.S. population, has in general fallen since 1900. J.D. Vance, a Scottish Irishman, goes Gates one further. He even exhibits tough love by refusing to aid his mother, who he finds has become homeless. Well, let me just finish up Professor Reed's. We'll post this up on Facebook. Since the black experience is under occupation by people, novelists, scriptwriters, TV punditry, the producers who have never been racially profiled are experienced redlining, and their black surrogates whose ideology is exposed by Professors Blake and Kilson's books. Black, brown, Native Americans are obligated to open up space where their opinions can be voiced. Dysfunctional white ethnics need their own Bakers and Kilsons, who will challenge those who have betrayed them in order to court favor with the creative minority. Ishmael Reed, border crossing novel conjuring Hindi, will be published by the Dakin Archives Press, a recipient of the National Book Award for Publishing. His most recent articles have been published in El País, that's the Spanish paper, and Haaretz, that is the military paper of the Israeli army. So we have Counterpunch here. We'll put this up as a link so you can read the whole article. This will do it for us. We'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback on Monday morning on these outlets, and we are changing some things around here. We are broadcasting on the Spreaker, iHeart part of it separately, and many of these outlets get to feed there and over on the Blog Talk outlet. So if you get two feeds from us, you're getting it because of the way it's set up. We'll get that corrected, but it does take a little time to get these feeds where we actually want them to be. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on the Monday Morning Quarterback. Also, our economics program. Numbers Man will be here. New numbers out